Yeah.
Well, right now I think
once it starts going, it'll all be the same color. Cool.
There's one of Courtney's best friends finishing her PhD. Not sure. In Denver, passionate about it. There's like her niche specialty.
Or do I come at a where try to continue? And so it's like, it's a hard one to figure out. Oh, well, what's interesting? We want to give it like physical training, but team training. How much could I learn in team?
Yep. Cool.
Is that where it is?
We're good.
All right, awesome. Are we live?
We are live.
We're live. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for coming. Yeah, we're going to start actually recording here in just a second, but thanks for coming. Tell your friends that you listen to this later if you know someone who this would make sense for. But if you guys are ready, let's get to kick it off. So, all right, awesome. I'm Andy Wagner, and basically why I was thinking about doing this is I've been a pro trail and road runner for about 10 years, or a little bit longer. I've run for Adidas, I've run for Nike, I've run for Solomon, and on top of that, I started this thing called the Trail Team, and in the last month, basically, I've talked to 20 athletes, and they've all asked me a lot of great questions, and at some point I was like, man, I wish you just shared this with more than just those 20 people. But kind of that demographic is young, up-and-coming runners who want to become professionals, with whatever that means, because I think that's kind of a vague term for that today. So it's really just looking to how we can help people who are aspiring pro runners and what they can do to make the next step. So first of all, I just want to thank Long Run Labs and Jonathan Levitt for all the recording that's going on. That's helping them. We're here at Scratch Labs in Boulder, Colorado. You guys coming up was tuning in. And first of all, I want to introduce our panel to some amazing people that we've gathered to talk about this because they're super knowledgeable. So first, I'll start with Drew Hunter. Drew is a professional distance runner for ASICS. He's based here in Boulder, Colorado. He's a national high school record holder. Turned professional at 18 and quickly became one of the fastest young American distance runners. Drew has personal bests of 3:33 in 1500, 13:08 in the 5K, and 27:24 in the 10K. And is pursuing major championship teams in 20 years. Now competing, Drew is the founder of Hammer and Axe, a coaching and storytelling-driven running platform focused on helping athletes of all levels train with purpose. He currently lives in Longmont, Colorado, with his wife and 2 daughters. So, welcome, Drew.
Thanks for having me.
Next we have Eli Humming. Eli is a pro mountain runner, coffee roaster, and cowboy who became the first American man to win the OCC by UTMB last year, 2024. Most days just run in the mountains, roasted beans, and trying to keep up with his wife, David. So, welcome, Eli.
Thanks for having me.
And then finally we have Courtney. Courtney is a sub-ultra runner for Brooks and represented the U.S. in the Mountain Classic at World Championships this year, where she helped USA nab silver. She's also coming off a top 10 season ranking in this year's Golden Trail World Series. Super big trail here for Courtney. Cool. All right, guys, so I'm just going to jump into it and ask some questions about professional running. So, Eli, I'm going to start with you. Okay. So, professional runners are often successful because of those around them. So, they have like lots of support. So, for example, there's coaching, there's nutrition, mental support in terms of like sports psychology, if people who help you with your schedule, that might be a coach, maybe someone else, PT, massage, lifting, like so many things. So basically I just want to ask you, like, who makes up your team as a professional, and what do you suggest that runners need who are like entry people?
Yeah, so, I mean, when I started this, it was definitely just Taylor and I going around asking people what we should be doing. Like, I was at the receiving end of Andy's advice many times, like when we were trying to figure out a schedule. And it's kind of figuring out just people that have been in the sport longer than you, because when you first get in, it's hard. There's a lot of races to do, you don't know which ones to do. Currently, Tabor and I coach ourselves. We didn't have a coach when we first started, but kind of found that we would like to do our own thing. But we do have a group of smart people like Chris Lee, kind of oversees our training, just lets us know when we're being a little over ambitious or greedy, as he likes to say. But yeah, I don't know. I think the best thing to do is kind of just go ahead and ask. Like, this is such an awesome community. Go to those people that have been through what you're going through, and if you ask, it's surprising what people will tell you. Everybody here is in the book, so I just say, go ahead and ask anybody.
Nice. I have a quick follow-up actually, because I've had a lot of athletes I've talked to recently talk about like mental training. And what I mean by that is like, have you ever, I guess my question is, have you ever worked with a sports psychologist or someone like that? If not, do you have some kind of way of like thinking about goals and thinking about like the challenges that are not like physical challenges of the race?
I personally haven't worked with any sports psych. I've kind of always just thought of sport as something I really enjoyed doing, and I saw the racing as kind of my social outlet. So it wasn't necessarily this big scary thing that I was doing. I actually really enjoyed getting my teeth kicked in at races. It's kind of one of my big favorite things to do. Very good at getting my teeth kicked in at this point. But I do know that a lot of people find a lot of success using sports psychs. And so I'd say if you are worrying about that side of things, there's no harm in going and seeing somebody. A lot of people do, just like I don't, but you should.
Yeah, maybe one last quick follow-up is like with goal setting, like how do you decide like what the best goal is? Because I'm self-coach, I understand that you're self-coach with Beaver, basically like you're saying. So how does that process look like in terms of like, do you have one big goal for the year? You set like an ABC goal, even with like a race or training block, you think that?
Yeah, so I would say as for goal setting, I personally kind of have been going, again, I'm really not that experienced in the sport. This is only my third year as a professional. And kind of, I'm still finding what I want to do, what I like to do. And there are so many different races throughout this sport. So I'm kind of trying all of them and seeing what I like the most. And really, you're not going to have the most success unless you're really passionate about going to that race. So if you really like mountains, go find some mountains races to go do. Well, I am not super anxious to go race Western States because it's running away from mountains all the time. So it's one of those that I look for mountainous races because I really like mountains. For training blocks, I don't know, I do go for, say, like, I think it's good to do one big race a year and kind of build everything around it. But yeah, I don't think you can really keep more than once, maybe twice a year. So I try to do one A race a year and then everything else is for fun.
Yeah, it's great advice on how to focus. Cool. All right, moving on to you, Drew. I've had a lot of athletes ask me about this. So I'm going to paraphrase: are race results the main way to get your first sponsor? Like, how can I get in touch with brands? What's the preferred communication method? So I think it's really just talking about like that first touch point with the sponsor. You just win a race and hope they talk to you.
Yeah. First off, thanks for my favorite things to talk about, so really happy to be here. Yes, that you have to run fast and you have to compete at a high level to have the conversation start with most sponsors. However, that's not the only thing. And I think sometimes that may scare people off, and that's not what I'm trying to do at all. I am just trying to be honest. I'm going to give a few different examples. I was with Adidas for almost a decade, like 9 years. My contract was up last year. I had the best year of my running career that year. I was very confident I was going to get re-signed by them, and they offered me an incredibly low offer, and I had not been in that position before. I had been with them for so long. I signed my original contract that we talked about when I was 18, and I sort of was unsure about like what the next steps were. So for me personally, the first thing I would say is always go out and seek multiple brands. That's the first thing I would advise. If you have an agent, they should be doing that for you. And if you don't have an agent, then you should be doing it yourself. The worst thing I think you can do is get one offer, even if it's something you're happy with. Go see your true market value and go test those waters. The second thing I would implore everyone to do is to, outside of running performance, ask yourself and ask the company that you want to work with how else you can provide value. I signed with ASICS last year. Something that they were really, really looking for in an athlete is men's track and field distance runner. They didn't have that. They were very strong on the roads. They have strong trail athletes. They were, I was filling that niche that they didn't know that they knew that they needed, and so I knew to them that was a company that was more valuable. Versus my previous brand, they have Nico Young, they have Hans Kessler, they have guys getting medals. So for me, I wasn't someone that was maybe as valuable to Adidas anymore. So I think it's important to understand where you can fit in the picture for whatever brand you're looking for, or whatever you're looking to do in the next 4 years. Finally, I think there's a lot of things outside of just performance that we can help. That can really help. I love media stuff. I similar to you, I started a track and field team. That was something I was really passionate about. I like to help athletes find their way in the sport. That was something I really enjoyed doing. And so when I was talking with these companies, I said, hey, I don't want to just go to the mountains, train and race a few times a year. I want to do your photo shoots. I want to be in brand campaigns. I want to consult with you guys on apparel and shoe technology. That really, really can add value to you as an athlete, and I think a lot of companies are, excited when they hear someone is on board to do those things. The last thing I'll add is, I think a lot of people think there's a few shoe companies that I want to sign with. There's the ones out there that everyone can name, the Nikes, the Adidas's, the Adidas. I think for any up-and-coming athlete, trail, track, roads, whatever, don't be afraid to think outside the box. Look for a niche in that market. There was a company that I was talking to that is really, really big in Europe, but they wanted to get to the US. Their shoe technology was maybe a year or two behind what I wanted, but I was going to be able to develop with them. Those are things that you can look for that can create a lot of value, and actually, those are companies willing to pay you a lot more because they need to sign athletes. So those are a few things I was sort of thinking about when I was talking with companies last year. But there isn't a script for everyone. A lot of it is, just be yourself and, try to be the best runner you can be, and know that that is sort of what a lot of these sports marketing people will see as the results on paper. But there's a lot of things behind the scenes that you can do to create value.
So, before you move on to you, this is great because this is kind of what Drew was just talking about, but from having a dedicated team or camps, culture, what products they offer, how do you know when a brand is the right fit? So think about brand fit.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it really pulls off a lot of what Drew said. If you are lucky enough to be in the spot where you have the opportunity to be talking to several different brands, then really make sure that you're doing the due diligence to make sure that you are bringing a value to a brand bring value back to you. I think brand fit is like a really interesting, huge conversation that could be like a whole other hour podcast on its own. But yeah, basically like there are going to be brands that are focused on really specific things. And if you, like I said, have the opportunity to be chatting with multiple, really think through specifically like in the trail world, right? Like I am just coming off of like 2 months of massive contract negotiations because my career trajectory changed dramatically this last year. And I had the opportunity to interact with some of different companies and brands and really ask the questions, where are you trying to go? And if you're trying to make this your career, think more than 1 year down the line too. Think 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Just because a brand is investing in something right now doesn't mean it's always going to invest in that. And so really be keen on what like who you are too. Specifically, I have been with Brooks, and Brooks has been really forthcoming on saying we are a team-based kind of sponsor and team, and we're going to provide a team atmosphere through the year and through racing. Now, for me, I've always been such a team player. I've been so extrinsically motivated my whole career. Like, and I joke about it. It's like if I didn't have other people around me, I probably wouldn't run. But if I have my teammates, I have my coaches, I have people like in my corner, I'm going to go and do the thing. And so that was really important for me when I was speaking to Brooks. They were really interested in backing people that could offer that team-based kind of like attitude, rather than a person that was just going to be in their own zone, cranking out the workouts, cranking out the results. And sure, like companies will want those people, but I knew what I could bring was a more holistic perspective on running. I had a previous professional career on the track, and I've gone through a handful of years where I was figuring myself out. And so when I was talking to Brooks, they saw that value in me. They said, you have a lot that you can bring from your past, and we had this conversation to build it to be something that was conducive to both of us. So yeah, I think brand fit is a huge conversation and something to be aware of, because you can also get this like siloed or siphoned with a brand if you're not aware of what they're looking for. Specifically in the trail world, certain brands are going to write contracts that are really ultra heavy, or really sub ultra heavy, or really Western States heavy, UTMB heavy. So be aware, look at those contracts and talk to them about where they're putting their money, because do you see yourself racing those races for the next 2 to 3 years? And so yeah, just be real with yourself on that, because I think it's easy to take the low-hanging fruit of a brand's interested in me, but really think about holistically what's going to serve you best in your career, and make you that best version of yourself and best runner.
Maybe a quick follow-up on that. It's like, how do you find out what like a brand's like ethos is? Because I've had a lot of conversations and people are like, oh, I like really want to run for this brand because they care about the environment or something. And I'm like, oh, they're like really like a brand. And maybe that's not like a true representation of what it's like to be an athlete, because an athlete you're almost like an employee. So how do you like find out?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I do not work with an agent, and so I connected so deeply into who all of the athlete managers are through, people that I bump into shoulders with day to day. Which, back to like Drew's point there, or whoever's point, they're not going to come to you, you need to go to them. Go to them and find out where their brand strategy is. I'm fascinated in the last 4 weeks of conversations I was having with specific brands that were trying to move in really unique areas. Like I had a conversation with a brand that historically has only been a trail, and they're telling me that they want to build out a track team in Boulder, and that was shocking. And I had a conversation with another brand that has been more of the track road stuff, and they're wanting to go into 200-mile plus ultras and like skip all the other distances. And so, when I hear that, I feel strongly of saying I'm not really good for you. But yeah, I think that warrants a larger conversation. Like we need to be having these conversations as a community, because really the like nuggets of truth lie within these small teams and these small companies. And unless they're sharing that out with other people, we don't know. You can assume a brand's going. You have no idea idea because they're having these conversations, every year, and my move is entirely the direction, which sometimes is hilarious, and you can take a risk on a company that's doing a crazy move, and so.
Yeah, my perception is maybe you can get some transparency from maybe social media, brands are maybe they're broadcasting what they're planning to do. So when I see an UI, Adidas loves the UTMB races, right? You can see that it's really obvious. They have a team. That's an obvious piece to what they show, and then maybe another piece is talking to athletes who run for those brands. That can be a useful thing. And then again, because it's hard to I hear what you're saying. It's really hard to get in touch with brand managers who people who are actually making decisions and having that vision, and they don't always share what they're looking for and doing. So, to Drew's point, you don't always know this brand is looking for an athlete that looks like me or something until it's too late. Awesome. Maybe just a quick rapid fire through the group. Do you have an agent, and would you recommend that to a personal story feedback?
So we actually just started working with an agent. I don't like talking numbers with companies. I'm terrible at advocating for myself, and I will always get less money than anyone else will for me. So we started working with a company with Howard Management, and it's kind of just one of those things. It's kind of a load off my shoulders. Again, because I hate confrontation and I hate advocating for myself. So let's let somebody else do it and see how that goes.
I have an agent, yes. I think that there are certain people in sports who should have agents. If you're an incredibly high earner, I think you should have an agent, so they will maximize your return a lot better than you. It's not something you want to stress about. So, I think if you're just getting into the sport, a good mentor / agent is something. It doesn't necessarily have to be an agent, but someone that can help you, get your foot in the door with companies or something like that. I personally think if you're sort of in the middle of the road, you don't need an agent. I feel like I'm in that position now. I was actually going to negotiate my last contract, and there was some other things that went on where I ended up not doing that, but I book all my own travel, I choose all my own races, I go out and get all my secondary sponsors. So someone like me probably is a little bit of a waste of time and money. I rarely talk to my agent. Ironically enough, I was texting him today, but I think sort of if you've been established, you have a good relationship with a brand or some brands, you can save some time and money by representing yourself. But you're right, you do want to, know yourself, and if that's something that you feel uncomfortable talking about money with, or you feel uncomfortable, putting yourself out there, then maybe it would be wise to have an agent. But I definitely think there's a sort of middle ground. I have some guys in my team that are in this position that don't have agents, and they're not running diamond league races. They're not, negotiating really big contracts or anything. So for them, a few thousands of dollars of prize money that they don't have to give a percentage of their agent goes a long way for them, and they don't necessarily need someone representing them for that stuff.
So, do you mind sharing who your agent is?
Yeah, my agent's Rick Flair.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, as the Asian lips person, I agree a lot with what Drew said. I think a majority of athletes don't need agents, and if you're looking to break into the scene, exactly what he said, make connections with people in the community that can mentor you, that can connect you. I, in the last 2 months, have had so many people just give me names and emails, and I've done the same back and forth with a lot of people and make introductions, and I think that goes a long way. I will also say there's a small hot take that I'll put out there. Some athlete managers don't even like working with agents because sometimes they want to deal directly with the athlete and hear from them. And so that's not always the case, but I'll put that out there. But I waffled back and forth this year. Do I get one, do I not? And it came down to, in the middle grade of what I'm earning on the scale of athletes out here. It's I'm not making the $500,000 salary really should. But I really do believe that you can get really far without that, but you do have to put in work. It's not just going to come to you. So I also had a full-blown corporate career up until this year, and so I have that business acumen where I'm like, I know how to have those conversations. I'm not afraid of the numbers. And yeah, so I think that was the right fit for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, just to clarify a couple things for maybe people who don't know, you talked about like athlete managers as like a role of someone who might work for like one of the shoe brands, for instance, that will choose athletes to sponsor. And maybe to clarify, agents usually take 15% or something like that. So one can imagine that there's probably some barrier of money if you're making, you know, almost no money, that would not be worth it. But if they're helping you get a lot more money from a contract, that would be worth it. Is that fair to say?
Although sometimes with the $0 contracts, they are helpful if you can get something. You know, there's a difference that maybe we'll have a conversation of like a salary versus not. And sometimes to get in the door, it actually could be really helpful. And they're not really getting any money from you, but they get that connection. So.
And I think in the trail world, agents don't necessarily do as much work as they do in the track world. Because you were talking about like them signing up for races and getting in the meets. Like those, as far as I know, that's not really necessarily a thing in the trail world. We sign up for our own races. So it's a little bit more just on the brand negotiation side.
Yeah, and I think maybe we'll get into that in a minute, because I think there's really different roles that are good to clarify, because I think, yeah, from my experience, I am not an agent. To Drew's point, when I try to get into track meets, that's when you need an agent or a coach to advocate for you, if you're an elite track athlete. If you're an elite road athlete, or someone who's in between, maybe like the people you're through, I've had a lot of experience emailing race directors, being like, is there travel support to this road race? And that's actually really a good thing that's out there. So I think that's really good to share for a lot of like up and coming runners. Like the road space has a lot of support that isn't, you don't need an agent, you don't need a coach, you don't need other people. That's maybe like a good element zone. In the trail world, it's maybe the same. Like you can get into many races as anyone. Like you don't have to have a special resume potentially. And these kind of people like agents that just don't help you necessarily. That's true, accurate. I guess back up on that. Awesome. Okay, let's see. Eli, I got a question for you. And you maybe I know learning more about you. You might this might be one question for you, but like I've seen a lot of people when they're like passionate about running, that's why they get into running. But then it changes when you become a professional. It becomes a job. So I guess I just want you to speak to like, how does that, like, what are the downsides of external motivation? Because like specifically, like I've heard this fact that once you get like paid a certain number to do something, you'll like never want to get paid less. So it's kind of like this hard game as a professional. Like I've been running for 10 years and you're like, oh, I don't know, like it feels bad to be less sponsored. But anyway, can you speak to the this shift of becoming a professional in terms of like motivation and how that looks different to you?
Yeah, no, actually, I've gone quite a bit through this, like, just recently. Like, I had a fantastic race last year at OCC, and I got a pay raise from that. And then this year, I had okay races, very okay races. I would mark them as bad, but that's just me. No, it is something that, like, I do believe that when you start to get paid more and you see it as a job, it becomes this little bit more, there's pressure, there is, hey, maybe that's when we should start talking about sports like we're saying earlier. No, but there is kind of this little bit more pressure you put on yourself to perform at the exact same level, and like in say the ultra running world, there's so much that can happen, and there's so much time that things can happen, and so like one of my biggest things, like going into this next year, is going back to the joy of running, and like I think Taylor and I both have separate jobs, and realizing like, oh yeah, like this is something that I do for fun, and I'm just happy to be out here doing it.
Yeah. You just remind me, I'm gonna ask another quick rapid fire question, maybe just like a yes no basically, but do you have a job outside of running? because I think a lot of people, there's this blurry line with professionalism where, one, you might not get paid enough by a brand or a series of prize money brands to pay for your living, but also like maybe you just need something to balance your life. So just quickly, do you have a job outside? Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. Because you do coaching and many other things. Is that accurate? That it's sort of realm?
Yeah, it's like, it's like a coaching business, but it's my coaching business, so it's sort of like how much I want to work depends on how much I want to work. But yeah, mainly full time.
Hammer and Apps, right? They have great tips online. You guys can check it out. Courtney, how about you?
Coaching, yeah.
Yeah, and you've had, like, so you've had a job. Did you have this like a corporate job while running?
Oh yeah, up until February, and being laid off in December was the best thing that happened for me, so.
Okay. All right, Drew, moving on to you. Quickly, how important are media versus performance in running? So that's like, I think young up-and-coming people are thinking about how do you balance that? What's the most important? Do you have to value both? Not one?
Yeah, I feel like there's probably different opinions on this, so I'm gonna give you my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that, as I'm sure everyone here is aware, like running is very blown up in the last few years, due to, super shoes and everyone wanting to run marathons and COVID, people exercising for the first time in forever and prioritizing their health and, all that all those different things. So I do think that running does feel a little bit more corporate. I don't know if that's the right word, but like you have influencers starting before the pro fields, now marathons, and there's some controversy online about that if you guys want to go down a rabbit hole. But personally, I think like a good blend of both has always been really important. I think it's really important for elite athletes to know their story and to be able to explain and tell their story online. That's always been powerful for myself and people around me. I think a lot of people actually resonate with things outside of my running. Like I have 2 daughters, and I get more messages about my kids than my running, but they know me because of my performance. So I think that that's really what I would advise and suggest everyone do, is to know your story. Don't be afraid to be yourself and to share your story as much as you can, and try to kick ass at races. I feel like that's a really good formula for success within our day and age, because brands are looking, at the end of the day. Like I remember being in a meeting with an exec at one of these big companies, and she's like, Drew, at the end of the day, it's about selling shoes. She's like, most runners don't sell shoes. That's the truth of the matter. But there are ways that we can sell shoes, and there are ways that we can market ourselves, and there are ways that we can, tell our stories so that people resonate with who we are as people. And then they say, hey, what shoes are they wearing? They're fast. Or, I think that. So, like I said, I don't know if there's a perfect formula. I think everyone's different. Some people are really good at talking to the camera. Some people are more, reserved and shy. But you see them out on the course or out on the trails, and you're like, wow, they're amazing athletes. So, like I said, I think I'll reiterate one more time: just know yourself, know your story, and don't be afraid to share that as much as you can.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you is something be authentic. Because I think like sometimes when I have these discussions, like some people are like, maybe they don't have any experience, they don't have like any social media presence, and that's because they're shy. So I think how you put it was, you're in charge of your dialogue, but maybe you also be authentic.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I do think I think of so many different people. I love like Ali Oster and how much she shares about who she is as an athlete, and even the dark sides of her past and things that she held her back as an athlete. People love that. People love that authenticity, but also her story is different than someone else's story. So you don't have to be her. You can be Drew or Eli or Courtney. But knowing who you are is really important. Just being able to talk about that, and in any way that you want. Like some people feel comfortable with a format of video. Some people feel better with newsletters or podcasts. But I do think there's so many mediums to share who you are and figure out what excites you and do that. My coaching business, I really love long form media. I love podcasts. I love newsletters. That's just, I like talking. I'm sure we can talk all night. I'm sure you guys can tell. But for me, that's how I like to communicate. But other people are, they can do really, short, fun things, and that's who their personality is. So I do think, like I said, like there's a lot of different ways to market yourself and brand yourself.
All right, Courtney. Get a lot of questions about basically like sponsorship with shoe brands versus the rest. So like socks or nutrition or watches. So maybe can you speak to that? What do those look like? Are they different? Like your own experience with that?
Totally. So yeah, I think a majority of us professionals that are working with shoe brands also go after smaller sponsorships and smaller deals. For me personally, I'll speak, how I feel about it. I really like working with smaller companies that feel really organic to me. I started that by kind of looking at my day-to-day and what am I using and what am I naturally promoting out on the trails or roads or whatever. And just like started there. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be somebody that is like seeking out a company to sign for, some accessory that I don't ever wear or have worn or don't really know anything about. I think some people do that, and that's great. I wanted to feel really like that was aligning for me. And so this last year I picked up a fueling sponsor, and they actually just started like an on-the-ground presence in the US, and I really was intrigued by helping grow that here, and the people that were involved actually became my close friends and people that I feel like I can lean on for more than just like a sponsor. And then I'm actively working to bring on a few others for this next year that were like really organic, like things that when I was having these conversations with these brands, I was like, this is like a no-brainer for me. I don't have to say, okay, can you send me some so I can try it to make sure? And I don't have to go into the media stuff, like force post this in a way that like my following or people watching will be like, that's weird. Like, why is there not weird protein shake now always in your photos? I think brands also are going back to that authenticity and away from like these massive, well, I guess there's a longer conversation there about the influencers, but I think we're starting to see brands that overinvested in like this influencing that felt really like forced and sterile, and now going back to like, okay, what are the athletes that are actually on the ground using and doing, and let's put money and support into those that are already using our products. So that's how I feel about bringing on accessories, smaller brands. Yeah.
Who's the nutrition sponsor?
Oh yeah, I work with Open Fuel, so they're a South African-based company that recently launched in the US, and it's like a little front-page hub of people that are working to like grow this fueling company. It's like, for me, and this actually goes against what I just said, I had never used their product, but I started using it when I was approached by somebody that was like, hey, we're trying to grow this on the ground presence here, and I was like, whoa, I really like your branding and who you guys are. It's really loud and funky and weird, and that's something I relate with. And yeah, it's a whole other conversation. And so, yeah, that for me, I was like, I wanted to work with a small company too that I could grow with. Of like, yes, I was going to bring on a fueling sponsor and get paid very little, but I wrote a contract with them that had a bit of growth in it. Of like, okay, if I can get certain bonuses, hits here or whatever, then you'll pay me more. But I also want to like test your products, and I also want to be on the ground at group runs that are like promoting it at a booth, or send me to TRE or whatever it is. I want to be more like an employee of your company. That was really enticing to me. So yeah, Open Fuel's rad, high carb fueling mix.
Cool. Yeah, I can relate to that. Like I work with Darn Top Socks. I just like literally love their socks. I love that they give you the ability to like do 5 rounds, giveaways and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's like great finding strong sponsors. All right. The next one is, here's a couple questions. I polled people online before this, so these are some from people online, but maybe I'll ask this one for whoever wants it. Is when should I talk to brands? Like, let's give a timeline.
I mean, I'll take this.
Yes.
I guess so. If you're having good success in racing, I don't think there's necessarily a wrong time to start talking to them. Like, obviously, there's kind of, they work with their budget and their seasons. Like, everybody's like, oh yeah, October is like signing season, but that's like, you want to be done with talking by then. You want to be talking with all the different companies that you can talk with by then. So like, if you're having like great success, if you're having like all this stuff happening right now, say like, okay, well, I'm gonna go talk to a company. Obviously right now is kind of fast, that is the signing season, but like, if it's no matter what time of year, I think it's not a terrible time like to use that as my platform's big right now. My stock is higher. Let's talk to the company.
Yeah, that elaborate on what Eli says, because I've probably told this to everyone I talk on the phone with the last month, which is like the end of the year is like signing season, and that's because brands, like many other organizations, have to figure out a budget for next year. It's usually in fall so that they can plan for the next year, and then in some order it would look like they'd have figure out the budget, find out if they're re-signing athletes that they've already had, or increasing the pay for athletes that they might already have, seeing if that matches, seeing if they want to add new athletes, see if those contracts are already up that they have. So that's kind of how that timeline works. So maybe if you're a new athlete, you kind of get at the end of that, you might not hear back for a while. So a lot of the athletes I've been talking to, they're like, talk to, they'll try to start these conversations, and they're kind of like, well, we have to like do all these other pieces first. But yeah, Eli's point, I also asked my roommate Mika about this because he is someone who signed with Brooks, I think in June 2023. And he's like, oh, like all these people, I named them off, signed in the middle of the year. So I think there are room in budgets for athletes to get signed up for big performance. I guess my quick piece of advice for all of you is, yes, this is a good time of year to talk to someone like a brand manager, get that contact for the right fit. And even if they say no, that's a useful thing, because then those people might know who you are for when you do have that right place. So even if you get a no, you're in limbo, that sometimes can be a good thing if you're an aspiring athlete, so that you're kind of on their radar, and then hopefully your performances and kind of media presence will build your reputation. Awesome. Another question for anybody who wants it. Here's one from social media, someone wrote in. Is it better to win a smaller race or do worse in a big one? I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but.
I personally think it's really good to practice running, and even if that means in a smaller race to start, that's something I've been trying to almost relearn. It's really, I want to say easy. It's really easy to get, second through fifth. It's really hard to win. I think that's a skill that you should try to practice more often than not. I had a really, really bad year in 2023. And when I started my season in 2024, which was an Olympic year, I started with like the biggest softball races. I was just like, I'm going to races where I'm the only pro athlete there, and I'm just going to go practice with me. And it helped me immensely with my confidence, with believing in myself, with, like I said, that skill of learning to win races and cross the finish line first. So I personally think that it's great to, start in the kiddie pool if you need to, and slowly move up. Jumping in the deep end is fun, but I also think it's good to use the skill of trying to win races as best you can. That doesn't necessarily mean like getting second in a big race is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think like it's winning in small races allows you to learn so that you can big races at some time.
Yeah, by the way, Drew, from memory, I'm asking this, I've got fourth in 10K, which is a new event.
I'm speaking tracks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Like, I had a handful of years where I won a lot of small races, and I almost was gonna say I didn't win anything this year. I did win the World Games in Vail, a small race. But really, I didn't win anything this year, and this was the biggest year of my life. So I think there's like a lot to be said too about like that this was the first year that I gave myself the shot to race on a world level and really like buy into that. And for me, I needed the underdog mentality because if I have struggled a lot with the mental side of sport and knowing if basically I was several years in the sport of saying if I don't stand up on this line and win, then I'm a failure. And so when I re-entered the sport this time, because I also joked that I retired from sport like 2 times. So out of this retirement, I was like, there's going to be no expectations and no pressure. And so for me, like getting 10th at like a World Series race was huge. And I just worked my way up so steadily. And, you know, finished still 10th. But that was huge for me and it like changed my life. So I think the trail was a little bit different too because these races are like a lot longer. And so I think it's more compared to like a marathon major, where it's like, yeah, I took the first American at New York, that's rad. And so it's like, if I'm the first American at a little trail, like, that's amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's kind of what I was thinking when I read that question, because especially in the trail world, there's like too many races, and so it's like pretty meaningless to win like your local backyard. I shouldn't use that as a point, but local race. It might be like winning a local 5K. And so unfortunately, it's like it's better to win a big race. It's not good to just win a local race. It's not good to do okay at big races. It's good to win a big race. All right. I think we're getting close to the end here. I want to make sure we save time for you guys' questions and questions in the audience online. So anyone here has a question? Let us know. Now I got a couple extra ones.
When you're talking to brands and they ask you what your self-worth is, how do you answer that?
Oh,
Like
very well.
when they ask you, like, what number are you looking for? Because that's where a lot of people I feel come from. Before they have an agent, they get asked that question. And I think as athletes, we don't necessarily know that because no one talks about it. So,
Yeah. I'm just going to say that so the microphone's
Yeah.
recorded. But we have a question from the audience basically saying if you're directly asked by a brand manager, like what is your literal money value, how do you answer that question? Someone who to take that one.
So from my personal experience this last year, and I'm not recommending this for everyone. This is what I did. I'm just going to be honest. I went to my agent and I said, "This is how much money I have to make to justify the run. What companies can get here?" He was like, "These are the 5 companies that can do this," and that sort of started the conversation. So I was very, very blunt and very, very honest. The reason I'm sharing that is the number we actually got to was higher than what I was even saying. So do not be afraid to advocate for yourself, and don't be afraid to just be honest with your situation. You know, I have other guys on my team that literally were like, someone could give me a contract for a year, and I would sign that tomorrow, and that they're happy with it. They have, you know, a career outside their running that they love and supports their running. And that's totally awesome and great. But I do think, and my agent even actually told me afterwards, he said, "I actually really appreciate you just being like, this is what I need," because I knew exactly what companies would be excited to issue that number for you. And that's how I sort of went about that. So, but also for me, like, just a little bit more background for people, just to put that in context. Like, my wife stopped her career so we could have children, and so I was the only person making money in our house. So it was a very high priority that I was running for enough for our family. And everyone's different, like some people that's not a concern for them, and that's not something they think about. For me, actually sort of helped me in, you know, just clearing space for what brands were interested in what brands were.
I'm just gonna follow that up really quickly, which I did an anonymous survey online this week asking my professional runner friends, hopefully, who answered how much money they made basically as professionals. Because my perspective is like, I think that I often hear a lot of people who are like professional runners making like a living wage or higher. And my experience is, just to be truthful, I've never made a living wage. I've always had a side job. I know there's a lot of professional runners who are sponsored by brands that have $0 contracts, things like that. It's really common. So just quickly, so people who have, out of the people I polled, it was 34 responses, sorry, 32 responses. Between $0 and $2,000 was 6%. Between $2,000 and $10,000 was also 6%. Between $10,000 and $25,000 was 21%. Between $25,000 and $45,000 was 10%. And then above 45,000 was 34%. So this was of professional runners. Didn't say trail or track or road or anything, but so basically kind of a spread where the biggest category was actually 45,000 or above. So maybe there's a bias when people are answering this survey. Let's see if that. We have another question.
Can I ask the opposite of Tabor's question? So she asked about like how are you identifying your work from a dollar perspective? The question I have is, are you bringing to the table like who are you as an athlete and what do you stand for, and how often are brands asking about that? And I'm asking that because I'm assuming that it's being discussed and that upcoming athletes aren't thinking about it from that perspective of like, what do I bring to the table and how do I match that with the brand? Like, if you're talking to a Patagonia, but you don't have the environmental component in what you do, or if you're talking to a Nike, but you don't have the performance acumen, like, is that a conversation that's happening? And what would you say to somebody who might not be thinking about that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. When I made my running resume this year, like half of it was performances, but the other half was who am I as a person and where's my reach elsewhere. Because there's like the word reach, like I co-own a coaching company with two other like stud sub-ultra, well now maybe ultra runners. I'm like doing stuff on the ground in Boulder. I'm working on these specific projects with other smaller companies, and all of that is holistically who you are. And I think you can also market yourself too, like I'm a teacher and or whatever you're bringing. I think it is important to lead with that. You know, unfortunately, I would like that brands have be asking that more of like, what else are you bringing to the table? I think there's a call to like push in that direction. I'd love to hear that more, right? I'd love for people to be like, okay, so tell me about your life outside running. Not have that all that often, but I definitely lead with that. And so I don't know if that's like data on it, but yeah.
Do you think it's happening more with the non-endemics and like the smaller brands that you talked about? And is there an opportunity to pursue those types of things in the more like we match in terms of our like what we care about versus shoe brands that are looking for a mix of performance and storytelling?
I'm just going to jump in and make sure that this gets recorded. The first question that Courtney just answered was, is there any kind of like negotiating power with who am I besides performance? And Courtney just answered that. And then the follow-up was, do we think that non-endemic sponsors that are maybe not traditional are more aware of that?
I guess, yeah, I don't necessarily know a whole lot with non-endemic sponsors. You go for it.
I've sponsored by Tule. People know what that is. They sponsor me because I had kids and everyone was that's on my stroller. And so that was actually something that was, like nothing to do with performance. They want me to post photos of my cute kids and me running with them in the stroller. And I like absolutely love that sponsor because it's like the nicest people. They could care less about my running performance, but sometimes this is nice. But yeah, like it's a great sponsor and it fits sort of who I am as a person. So, and yeah, they support me financially and with gear as well.
maybe another question, what like, I'm just interested, what percentage of deals you've made have come from in-person communication with the brands, and like what percentage has kind of been like a cold call or email? It seems like there is a lot of presence, especially in the trail world, it's kind of all the brands are in one place at one time. Is most of your deals coming from meeting there, or is it mostly, hey, I emailed this person and they responded? I'm just gonna very quickly say that's a decision important is how are we like interacting with sponsors? Is that in person, maybe at a race? Is it like a cold call from us, the athlete, I guess, to the brand? Is it the brand to us? I can answer this one.
No, so all of our sponsors have started with email. It's kind of interesting, like, I don't know, I've never seen the athlete managers out and out, I've never known exactly who they are. Whereas if I have an email address, I know exactly who they are. I can give it to them, say, this is who I am, this is what I want to be talking about. And then later, like, if that is a conversation that they want to continue, that's when we go actually like maybe talk in person.
I've had a mix of both. Like the two that I just talked about, the guy who works for the company just knew who I was, loved running, and was like, hey, like, can we do something here? That's how that started. Another company that I reached out to was Precision, because I've been using their fueling stuff, and I was just like, hey, like, I know you guys are more road trail focused, but I'd love to be one of your guys' track athletes, and I initiated that sort of conversation. And then, yeah, like agent through shoe companies is the traditional route for the bigger sponsors for me.
I think you could also get connected through people too. Like I went on a run with somebody that was like, yeah, sponsored by this company. I was like, oh, do you think they're interested in getting into the sub-ultra world? And they're like, actually, let me email my athlete manager and see. And got back to me and was like, actually, yeah, they're really interested and connected me. So I think an additional is like through other people. Just like put your name out there and ask. Like, and if your name is floating around in the ether, like people will grab it and want to have conversations. The more you have conversations, the more your name is out there.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, so I know like a lot of us in here are like younger athletes and we don't have like a ton of those connections. Particularly like I would not know like who to email like a brand manager. And so it's like, is that a place where you think it's good to have an agent, or like is it just building your network to try and make those connections to like be able to get your foot in the door and start having those conversations? Because right now it's like there's all that stuff out there, but like it seems hard to start that process.
I'm just gonna say, sorry, for paraphrase, that question was, how the heck do you get a hold of the brand manager for any of these brands if you're not becoming athletes? You have no idea.
Well, I think this question was asked maybe from a collegiate athlete, and I would recommend, I met with one of these collegiate athletes today. She reached out to me in a weird kind of twisted way. Like we had some connections with my family. However, she reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm in Golden. I'm really looking into growing my career and making this professional, but I have no idea what to do. Like, reach out to people like us that are open to mentoring. Andy and Carly do a really great job at doing that. There are people that are happy to lead you through that and connect you. Because chances that you go and like sign an agent and get something, maybe, but like come to us and we're like, we'd love to help you navigate through that. There are a lot of people like us here that want to pour into this type of community. And so shout out to the audience that were here that did that today. Because I'm like stoked on helping her through the rest of her collegiate career and into whatever it comes. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like, personal connections probably help a lot with personal introductions to someone. All right, any other questions from the audience? I got a fun one really quickly if we don't have one before we go. Because someone, this is like a couple variety of ways, but someone asked online earlier this week, what's the quickest way to get sponsored? And I think that's like a great question though. 'Cause, like, there's also one, maybe this is like a tie-in, because there's one that also says best races to plan for in 2026. And my mind is going to like, oh, just win UTMB. Yeah. So I think, I don't know if there's a better way to attack that.
Why didn't we lead with that?
I think that's a great way, but I think it's so, but maybe a better follow-up would be, because I feel like this is my realm with the trail team, it's people are typically unsponsored until they have this breakout race, winning UTMB. Like, what do you do in the meantime? Do you just like use your own expenses? Like, how do you navigate that?
Well, so I think kind of one of the things that if you do want to become a sponsored athlete is kind of betting on yourself. And like if that is, I have another job, I do kind of empty the bank account to get to those big races to put my shot out there. I think that's kind of one of the best things you can do is betting on yourself. Yeah, me and Tabor, we emptied our bank account to go to Sears and all. And he told us to go to that one right away. It was bad. I got my ticket, but Tabor started our career that way. So it is one of those like you do have to bet on yourself to really get out there. So you do. I think it's worth spending the money going for it.
Yeah, runners are scrappy, and I feel like there's a million different paths you can take. I am on a team with guys that have contracts where they don't have to do any work outside of running, full-time professional athletes. I have guys that are on year deals with bonuses, meaning they have to run, a certain time standard or something like that to hit a bonus. And so they have a job outside of that. And then I have guys who work full-time jobs, no contracts whatsoever, don't meet per year. And we all train together a few times a week, and all of them have their path and they're confident in what they can do, and all of them have improved as professionals, meaning there isn't like a right or a wrong way to do it, it's just what works for you and what makes sense for your life. Some people are totally comfortable living off of absolutely nothing for a long period of time, and they can chase their dream and they can, work odd jobs or, do things to support their own career. And I just think there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Really, I think the dream stops when you decide it stops. And so if you're, chasing it and it's something you're passionate about, it doesn't make sense to anyone else, that's okay. As long as it, is what you want to be doing and feel compelled to keep pursuing it.
And all about my hot take, and that is the quickest way to get sponsored is to not set the goal of getting sponsored. Because I think a lot of times you can be like, I have to get sponsored. I'd say have fun with it. Go out there and be your best self, because usually your performances will come when you're enjoying it and you're crossing the finish line and first or 10th and have a smile on your face and you're bringing energy to the running community. That is what matters. Not somebody that's white knuckling for one performance so that they get a 4-year sponsorship so that they never perform again. So hot take, but
Yeah. I just want to add one more thing before we wrap up. I think this is awesome and great that we're having this conversation. When I first signed a pro contract in 2016. Money and sponsorship in our sport was almost taboo. Literally, it was just, you could not talk about it. Have those conversations. Ask people what they think. Do not be afraid to do that. That is how we make our sport better. It's how we make people in the sport have, better opportunities. And it starts with the athletes, and I think that's something that has slowly been changing, but it's really, really important to do that. And I think I just think that this is awesome that we're having something like this, because I do think, even 5 or 6 years ago, this would, like I said, feel taboo to even be discussing these things. Like I said, if you're curious, ask someone, don't be afraid, find a mentor, find someone that a path that you think is inspiring or something you want to do, and don't be afraid to, like Gordon was saying, people want to help you on that path. People want to, allow you to live this dream as well.
All right, unless we have any burning questions, I think it's a great way to end it. Thanks everyone for coming. If you guys don't follow them already or know who our athletes are, it's Eli Hemming, it's Drew Hunter, and Corey Coppinger. We're going to put links to their social media, ways to follow them, find them, get coached by them, in our show notes. So please follow along. Thanks for coming. And if you have any more questions, reach out to us online because that's a great way to start this conversation. Thank you. I did